Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of CT Sports Now. I'm Mark Robbins, and with me, and it's a pleasure to get a chance to sit down and talk with the, I guess now recently retired athletic director and longtime head football coach, baseball coach at Notre Dame of West Haven, Tom Marcucci. Tom, thank you so much for stopping by. Well, I know you have a little bit of time now, but I do appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. I wouldn't miss it.
48 years. I mean, you are Notre Dame of West Haven because you were a student there. You went there for 4 years and then spent 48 involved with the school. Right. When will it sink in that you don't have to walk the halls anymore?
Right. It's hard to tell. Every once in a while I think about it. I find myself reminiscing a little bit, and my car has driven up that hill so many times. And I think maybe in August, when football starts and everything starts, it'll probably start to sink in. Then I'm not going back.
Now, recently you had a big bash, a big swan song or farewell, where everybody, I mean the who's who of Notre Dame athletics for 50 years. Right. Was there. What was that like to be able to go back in time like that?
Well, it turned out to be a great night. I really dreaded it coming in because I didn't really want it. And then when I saw it, and I had students there that I had as freshmen in 1970, and to see different teams, different classes, and it was like a big reunion. And they were having such a good time. It really relaxed me. My family was there, and it turned out to be an unbelievable night.
I mean, lots of stories and things that were told. And when you think back and you graduate from Notre Dame and go to Holy Cross, was it plan A to go back to Notre Dame, or was it just let me find a job and start making a living?
Well, there was no plan. I like to say it was plan A or plan B, but basically I went to school, and when I got out, I actually had a few interviews with different companies, and one of the interviewers said to me, "You really don't want to do this, do you?" I said, "No, really, I want to be a teacher and a coach." And I told my father, and he was sympathetic to that. At that time, when you went to Holy Cross, you were really supposed to be a lawyer or a doctor, but with my grades, I wasn't going in that direction at that point. But Ray Tellier, who was my high school coach, had an opening. I talked to him, hired me as a football coach, and then a teaching job opened, and the rest is history. So,
yeah, and you talked about the subject. Tell me real quickly, what was the first subject, or what did they tell you that you would predominantly teach?
I was a history major at college, and when I had the interview with Brother Patrick, he said to me, "You think you could teach sociology?" Now, I had never taken an education course. I had never been in front of a class. And he said, "Can you teach sociology?" And I said, "Sure." And when I got out of the room, I really said, "What exactly is sociology?" I have to go look that up. I know I took some courses, but they never were called exactly sociology.
Well, but you did what I'm sure you've told your students and players over the years: say yes and then figure it out afterward, right?
Yes, I really wanted to do it, and I had confidence in myself in that sense, And I really didn't know how it was going to turn out. I didn't know how many years I could be there or what I would like it, but I had an affinity for the school and for the kind of kids we had, and it really was almost right away, between the coaching and the teaching. I had been coaching for a week or so, triple sessions, before I actually started teaching, so that made it easier too. So it transitioned, and I loved being in the classroom. I really did. I loved teaching.
And teaching football, and you coach baseball too. A lot of people don't realize, because you finished your career as just the football coach and athletic director, but baseball as well. Were those your two favorite sports growing up?
I coached baseball. Actually, Coach Tellier, I coached baseball from 1973. I was 25 years old, and I coached until 1994. My daughter, Stephanie, was playing softball for Sacred Heart, a very good softball player, and I missed every single game because I was coaching. So that was one of the reasons. Everybody thinks my son graduated that same year, thinks I left because of my son. It really was because I wanted to see my daughter play. Now, he went on and played at Harvard, and so I was able to see both of them play. So, yeah, a lot of people have forgotten I was a baseball coach, and really through the years, I've become so much better baseball coach than I was back then.
Really?
As I moved out of the dugout into the stands, every year I got better and better. I never made a mistake. Never made a mistake.
Wow. And you touched on that, deciding to spend some family time and having to cut back. How much sacrifice did your family make throughout this 48 years?
Unbelievable, really. I always talk about the 1980s were like a blur. I was a head coach of football, baseball, I was teaching 5 classes. I had 3 little kids, and my wife, Pat, did an unbelievable job with the kids. They're probably better off in the long run, and she did a great job.
So.
Did a great job. And then the kids became part of the Notre Dame athletic program. My son came to practice. My daughter came to practice. We had weightlifting competitions. They were there. Everything was Notre Dame, So it was a great experience. But I said, if it wasn't for my wife, and then she was teaching at St. Joe's at the time, so there was a lot of maneuvering going on at that time. And that's why I don't know any of the music of the 80s, any of the TV shows of the 80s, and nothing about the 80s.
Well, if you don't know all the pop culture of the kids you're coaching and teaching, how did you build upon? How do you relate all these years? For
some reason, and I was able to relate with my guys all the way through, even when the last couple of years when really I could have been their grandfather through 2007, 8, and 9. I was able to do that. I was able to do it. I always say I was just like them as a student, so I knew what they were thinking, and you have to change, how you deal with them and how you actually talk to them nowadays than the way you spoke to them in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, and how have the games that you coached changed?
Well, the game of football has changed an unbelievable amount. I mean, the spread offense and the different things that are done are so much different. I came back in 2009, and they asked me, are you going to use wristbands? And I said, yeah, I'm going to have one that says block and one that says tackle. And that's what we're going to do because that's how you play football, But we evolved from there into a spread offense and that type of thing. And even the hitting in practice. I mean, guys who played, some of those guys the other night, they were there 70s, 80s, 90s. It was hitting every single day in practice, every day. Nowadays, it's much different, and how you control practice, it's much different.
Would it be unfair of me to ask you whether you prefer baseball or football coaching?
People ask me that all the time, and it was always during the season whenever I was coaching,
Yeah.
Baseball is like a slow death coaching, a little bit. You're there and things are happening, and if your pitcher's struggling, you're struggling. Football is a little bit different, but I like them both the same, actually. I'm primarily a football guy, and we kind of practice baseball like football. The guys who played baseball know that we had such an active baseball practice that it was sometimes mayhem out there, but it was pretty effective. And I had so many good players, so many in both sports. It made it a lot easier,
And they talk so fondly of you, regardless of the sport or in the classroom and in the classroom. That probably has got to just lift your spirits every time you think of somebody, that you might have touched, in a positive way.
There's no question. I had so many nice things said, and guys getting emails and actual letters and things like that from the guys. But I try to tell them that they had as much impact on me as I had on them. I learned from them. I was part of their lives, and they were part of my life. I use that quote all the time. It was like having over 1,000 sons, that what they were going through, I was going through with them. And we did things together. And I think that it was a mutual thing. It does make me feel good if I had anything positive with them. And the other night, like seeing all those guys there and just the feeling that was in that room was, you could almost touch it, like it was so nice. So, it's very rewarding.
It's a special place. Did you ever think of leaving it?
There's a couple of times. There's a couple of times I had an opportunity to go coach in a public school and one time at college, and I almost went, but I interviewed and I just couldn't leave. I had a hard time leaving. And I don't know if because I wasn't afraid. It was just that I just felt part of the place. And it's like I said, I'm so glad that financially it wasn't the greatest move at all times, but we didn't care that much about that, and so I stayed.
Yeah, I mean, how many times or how many years did that pull maybe to go to a higher level, to go to college? Did that, especially probably when you were in the first 10 or so years of coaching?
When you're younger, you think about it. Now as I've gone through it, and I see what college coaches have to go through with the recruiting and the traveling and all that, I think it's a very difficult job. We always look at the top guys and you see the staffs and they're making all kinds of money and they're hearing this and, Nick Saban and all these people. But I look at the guys that are coaching Division III and Division II and they're sleeping in the dorm and they're going, they're traveling and they're going to different high schools. And that kind of life, it wouldn't have been good for me. It wouldn't have been good. I liked being home. Basically, I had Notre Dame high school and my family. That was it, and that was perfect.
That was certainly more than more than enough, and you were successful. Obviously, with both, you have a wonderful family and so many success stories at Notre Dame. Do any of them stick out, whether it be a team or individuals that?
No, it's hard to single anybody out. Everybody's asking me, who's your best player, who is this, who is that, and I don't like to talk about it, and I certainly, there was games that are memorable. Unfortunately, when you're a coach, the things you remember more are the games you lose than you win. I always
Players say that too.
Yeah, it's always the case. You remember these things, and one of the guys the other night at the party there said, "Oh, the Trumbull game when we got beat for the state championship," and I'm going, "Oh, let's enjoy ourselves tonight," But I think it's the time you spend on the field, at practice with the guys on the bus. Funny things that happen and things you do together. You laugh, you cry. It's I don't think there's a better profession. I really don't. And it's to being a teacher and a coach with young men at this vulnerable age, that makes it so great,
So with that being said, is there something out there, generic advice that you can give somebody who's coming out of college in the next year or so that's looking at
being a coach,
a teacher?
I would tell them this, and for coaching, like I said, coaching is so much more difficult today than it was even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Parental involvement, media, scrutiny, things in the paper, blogs.
I take offense to that. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that, I'm talking about more in a newspaper where they can write, anybody can write whatever they want about you in the paper, criticizing people, and they don't have to put their name on. I think that's instead of pressure. But I would say to a young person, if you love the kids and you want to be around and spend time, don't worry about the money, and you like competition, then there's no better thing to do. But I would be lying if I didn't think it was harder today than it was back then. Things, were simpler. They really were. And nowadays there's a lot of things going on, and I think it's going to be harder and harder to get coaches. I really do. That'll last a long time.
Well, it's going to be hard to fill your shoes. I know Notre Dame is going to do the best they can, but you got there's some big shoes in Notre Dame West Haven to fill. And
well, I appreciate you saying that, but I always say everybody's replaceable, and it's they have great guys there. Joe DiCaprio doing the football, and Jason Shea taking over the athletic department. Steve Kirk's here. These people are invested in Notre Dame High School, and they'll be just fine.
Yeah,
and they can always call me.
You taught them all.
Yeah.
They're all your guys, so they'll follow your
They are my
footsteps
guys,
quite
right.
well.
Right.
Tom, I can't thank you enough for coming in, and it's been a pleasure being able to cover and work with you all these years.
Thanks, Mark.
I
appreciate all you guys do. I really do. That's the only reason I came.
Well, you make it easy on us, and a lot of fun too. It's been fun, and I've really enjoyed it, and I hope we'll be able to, our paths will cross many more times.
I'll be around the fields, that's for sure, and I'm be much smarter than I was.
Oh no, I don't think that's possible. Tom, I appreciate it. Tom Marcucci, now recently retired Hall of Fame coach from Notre Dame of West Haven, and this has been. Hope you've enjoyed the interview. This has been a special edition of CT Sports Now. I'm Mark Robbins. For our entire crew, we'll see you next time.